I believe it was around 11 years ago that my family went on a little vacation with some friends in a cool spot near San Diego, California, and it just so happened that the other dad joining us on this trip was a homebrewer and craft beer lover, so we both brought along some beers to share with each other. Now, those who were drinking craft beer at that time might recall the massive interest people started to have in lower ABV hoppy beers. And within a relatively small window of time, most notable commercial breweries began producing their own versions of this unique style. Well, it was during this vacation that I tried my first so-called session IPA, which my friend Ryan brought with him, and really, it was an eye-opening experience for me. This is the Brülosophy podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Schott, and this week I'll be joined by the inventor of that very beer, special guest, Jeremy Kosmicki, who is the head brewmaster at Founders Brewing, to discuss his experience creating the highly regarded all-day IPA, a beer I love to this day. Now, I know that we're not really an interview-based podcast, but given my appreciation of Founders Brewery in general, as well as my love of all-day IPA, I just couldn't pass up this opportunity to have a conversation with the dude who invented it, and I thought our listeners might get a kick out of it as well. So we're going to be going over Jeremy's history in brewing, his career with Founders, and of course, the process that ultimately led to the creation of the delicious all-day IPA. I think he may even share some recipe tips as well. This is going to be a fun one. All right, if you're a fan of this show and you'd like to receive a reward for helping us to keep it going, please consider becoming a patron of Brülosophy over at patreon.com/Brülosophy, where you make a small pledge and receive rewards like access to unpublished contributor recipes, unique perks from YakimaValleyHops.com, and an invitation to a monthly live brew day with a Brülosophy contributor, as well as inclusion in certain episodes where we tap our patrons for their comments and questions. You can learn more about all of the rewards we offer for your support over at patreon.com/Brülosophy. Another really easy way to help us out is by using the links found at brülosophy.com/support when you're shopping online. Your experience doesn't change at all, and we get a little kickback for that referral that helps us to cover the costs of running all of this stuff. And finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating and review of this show in Apple Podcast or wherever it is you listen to podcasts, we really would appreciate that. It seems like once we hit that 1,000 review mark, people stopped caring as much about reviewing the show. If you haven't done it yet, please just take a couple of minutes to go and do that. It really does make it easier for people who haven't heard of us yet to more easily find the show. Feedback is brought to you by Clawhammer Supply, who, in addition to having an awesome YouTube channel chock full of great brewing-related content, sell what we believe to be some of the best electric brewing systems on the market. If you've been thinking about making the move from propane to electric, you really do owe it to yourself to check out Clawhammer Supply. Whether you're after a 120-volt 5-gallon unit or something bigger like their powerful 240-volt 10-gallon system, Clawhammer has got you covered. You can learn more about everything they have to offer at clawhammersupply.com. And don't forget to check out their YouTube channel as well. Reddit user Brewfool left a comment on our recent experiment article that looked at the odd technique known as gas hopping. They said, I find the comment that, quote, the gas-hopped beer's aroma was incongruous with its flavor rather interesting, and that alone makes me want to try this technique. Not that I would ever consider using gas hopping at home, but just to experience the incongruity. Yes, Brewful, I totally agree. Now, having not tried this beer, because Alex is the one who brewed it, and they live in Texas, I can't speak to it specifically, but I've certainly had beers that I felt were just different in terms of the aroma as it compared to the flavor of the beer. To me, it's always an interesting experience. Now, I will say that this particular experiment yielded way more feedback than usual, so clearly it piqued some interest among homebrewers, but for whatever reason, it also brought some of the snarky folks who think they're being funny by being asses out of the woodwork as well. Honestly, it was kind of refreshing. We haven't seen that level of self-righteousness in a while, so thank you for the reminder that you're still out there. Seriously, I don't care that much. I just don't have another co-host with me this week, so I figured I'd save the more meaningful feedback for an episode where I do. That's not to say your feedback wasn't meaningful, Brewful. I really appreciate you commenting on that on Reddit, and I tend to agree with your thoughts anyway. So, all right, if you have show feedback, you can send it to feedback@brülosophy.com or leave us a note on social media. Don't forget to pick up your Brülosophy merch over at brülosophy.com/shop. We are offering more options than we ever have before, from t-shirts, hoodies, and hats to fanny packs, shorts, coffee mugs, tank tops, mobile phones, cases, stickers, so many more things. We have done our best to keep prices very reasonable, and international shipping is now available. Again, head to brulosophy.com/shop. You can click one of the product images on that page, which will redirect you to our Dashery store. You can go there directly by either going to brulosophy.dashery.com or clicking the link that we put in the description of this episode. When we're back from this break, I'll be having a conversation with Founders Brewery's head brewmaster, Jeremy Kosmicki, about his experiences with All Day IPA. Stop guessing and start perfecting your craft with Brewfather, the ultimate tool for recipe design. Brewfather Premium unlocks advanced inventory tracking, tilt integration for real-time fermentation monitoring, and seamless cloud sync across all of your devices. But wait, there's more. Premium Plus just changed the game with Brewfather's brand new AI recipe integration. Whether you're looking to clone a rare commercial classic or need a creative spark for a unique grain bill, Brewfather AI helps you build balanced, world-class recipes in seconds. Brewing is a science. Make it art with Brewfather Premium Plus by visiting brewfather.app today. That's brewfather.app. Better beer is just a click away. We don't really do interviews very often here at the Brülosophy podcast, but when we do our best to make sure that it's with somebody who has changed the brewing game. Jeremy Kosmicki has been a mainstay in the industry for decades, and today he's joining me to deconstruct the why and the how behind what many of us view as a modern classic these days. Whether you're a home brewer or just a fan of a crisp pint, I trust this one's going to be just as informative as it is entertaining. Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to chop it up with me. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Marshall. I love talking beer, so this will be great.
There's kind of a coincidental thing where people who brew beer tend to like talking about it, right? It's
Right?
a little bit more fun to do it with other beer lovers than it is with our spouses and our children who don't even understand what's going on. So, but let's just jump right into this. I mean, your history is one that goes back, you're older in this industry than this show is. We'll put it that way, and you've had quite the impact, in my opinion, at least, in various respects on the brewing world. Before we get into the nitty gritty of All Day IPA, which is what the main focus of this episode is going to be, because it is the 15-year anniversary of that delicious session IPA, I would love for you to share a bit about your history in brewing overall. You've been in the industry for a long time, and I'm curious, what sparked your interest in beer and brewing in the first place?
Well, thanks for the kind words, Marshall. It's been a wild ride, and I am super blessed to have experienced everything and be in the position I'm at. So, yeah, it all started as a lot of us did with some home brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back in the '90s, I wasn't late '90s. I wasn't quite 21 yet, but we discovered that we could buy homebrew gear and the ingredients, and nobody was going to stop us from making beer for ourselves. So, we had started to see some different craft beers on the shelves that looked interesting, and we definitely, I wasn't a lover of the domestic lager back then. It was kind of boring. It wasn't what I was into. But when I started seeing, Sam Adams had a couple weird things that would pop up on the shelves, and my cousin was attending Western Michigan. That's down in Kalamazoo, where Bell's Brewery is located. So they were an early inspiration for, just flavors and aromas that we had never experienced before, and it was super inspiring. So we bought the homebrew kit and got a couple of recipes. I think we brewed it was a Anchor's Porter was the first one we ever did, a clone of that. I don't know, it just came out really good, and our friends all liked it, and we enjoyed what we were doing. So that's really what inspired it. I probably had some dreams of, God, I could do this for a living or something, but at the time it was, not really not a clear path to how to make that possible. So
Right, right.
um,
Dreams, and I'm sure a handful of friends and family who are, telling you that it's the best beer they've ever had and that you should become a professional brewer.
definitely, definitely. Um, but we were having fun with it and brewing, I guess rather extreme things, a lot of experimenting, making big, bold flavors, high alcohol, all that stuff that homebrewers get into when they're young and have the opportunity. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you said you started off with Anchor Porter. It's
mhm.
funny. I started off, the very first batch of beer I brewed was 2003, early 2003, and it was an Irish red ale. And people are like, "Oh, you must just love Irish red ale." I mean, I love it. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it's not my favorite. It
right,
was what
right.
I got from in the kid at the store.
Yep.
Was Porter like your favorite style or something? Or was there a style that you kind of became your white whale that you were kind of chasing?
No, it wasn't. I think we got that one, and we ordered up an IPA at the time too. I think it was based on Ballantine's
Oh yeah.
IPA. So I think those were the first two that we tried. We were just, I mean, yeah, it wasn't. I was probably more of an IPA guy at the time. That's kind of what fell in love with Two Hearted, and that's the kind of stuff I wanted to make. So, um,
You're such a
but yeah,
Midwest beer person.
right,
Two
Porters
Hearted and
and
Bells, and I don't,
Midwest IPAs.
my all of my beer references are from the West Coast because that's where I cut my teeth. So, but
Okay, yeah.
I have like a version of all of the stuff that you guys talk about in the Midwest or the folks on the East talk about. We have our representative versions of those over here on the West. So I get what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of history over there on the
Oh
West
yeah.
Coast too. So, yeah. So, anyways, I was getting by. I was working uh, pretty lame jobs. I was actually in the auto detailing business. So we would take these used cars and we'd clean them up and make them look like new. So, yeah, some of those skills translated. I definitely had to learn an attention to detail, how to clean things the right way. I mean, those were all important carryover into a brewing career. But eventually, I kind of got. I couldn't really go on with that. I needed to do something else, and my girlfriend at the time, who's not my wife, encouraged me. Said, "Why don't you go down in Founders and apply for a job?" And I was like, "Well, babe, I don't know. Founders isn't really my favorite. I'm more of a Bell's guy."
Of course.
It was in the early days of Founders. They were making less exciting beers, I suppose. Like a lot of oak breweries that opened at that period. They had a pale ale and a wheat beer and an amber ale,
Uh huh.
and it was fine, but it just wasn't inspiring to me as an adventurous home brewer. But nonetheless, they were the biggest brewery in town, and I needed a job pretty bad. And so I went down there in the tap room and asked if they were hiring, and the bartender said, "Oh, hold on a second here." And um, she went back to in the back, and the packaging manager came out and asked if I could start right now on the bottling line. They needed somebody.
No shit. That's
I was like,
crazy.
yeah, sure. I got nothing going.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
just gonna drink this pint with the change that I had scrounged up
Yeah.
from the couch cushions, and yeah. So that was my in. That was my foot in the door at Founders.
And that was when?
That was in the year 2000.
God, so you are with the company that you started with.
That's correct.
That
Yeah,
is
and
that is a rare occurrence in the professional brewing world, I'd imagine. I mean, just from the folks that I've talked to.
yeah, it's kind of unheard of, but I'm a loyal guy, and I do like where I live. I got friends and family here, and Founders has been good to me. I've grown with the company, and um, yeah. So foot in the door there. I spent some time on the packaging line. I spent some time doing a lot of odd projects just to try to get some hours, get some money. Finally, in 2002, I got put on the payroll. The original brewer and his assistant both had moved on right before that. So there was an opportunity, and a good friend of mine, actually my home brewing partner, had been working out at New Holland, another brewery local. It had some experience brewing on their system, so they actually hired him to be the head brewer. and then he made me the assistant brewer. So that's kind of when we started bringing in some of our more, homebrew mentality. We needed to fix the IPA. That was job one. And then start brewing some other styles. We were really just doing it for our tap room. We wanted to have a cool tap room. We wanted to have a place where people could come and try things that, besides what we put out in bottles, and just experiment and have fun. And that turned some heads. That kind of started getting some attention.
Well, I just love the story about you and your homebrewing partner infiltrating Founders Brewery and completely.
Right.
I mean, I have to imagine that you guys had some pretty cool conversations and you're like, what the hell? How did we get here? The two of us, we were doing this in our garage before,
Yeah. Founders was business wise not in a great spot. They had been struggling, and I think they didn't have much to lose. They were ready to try something different, and they could probably get a couple of homebrew kids for a fraction of what they were probably
That's right.
paying the original highly trained brewmaster. So yeah, they took a gamble, and we all made it work out.
That's such an awesome story, Jeremy. I think, I'm sure that we have a lot of listeners right now. I mean, this as well as anybody else, that you even mentioned it, that, you brew a couple, 2 or 3 good batches, and then suddenly you're like, God, I could make a career out of this maybe, and particularly, I mean, let's be real, the time that you were coming up and this opportunity presented itself to you was a ripe time. I think the kind of the start of that rise in craft beer that really, I mean, Founders is one of the mainstays in the United States. I think most people will agree with that. The fact that you were able to catch that train is awesome, but it sounds to me like you didn't have any formal brewing education as you hear people talking about these days. You really cut your teeth, doing it in the home brewing, and then just the experiences that you had when you got hired at Founders, it sounds like.
Yeah, I got that foot in the door and learned everything on the job. I've gone back for some schooling since then, just to try to hone my skills and learn a little more about brewing can be as complicated as you want it to be. You can get pretty deep into it. I'm more of a simple guy. I suppose I lean more towards the artistic side than the scientific side. But Founders has done a great job of, especially as we've grown and developed, of surrounding me with really, really smart people, capable people that I can lean on. It's really become a full team effort. And I do what I do best. I feel like, it's my palate and my creativity and making flavors work. But there's a lot that goes into it, especially as we grew and got bigger and needed to take things more seriously.
Yeah. We did an episode a while ago where another co-host and I just sat and kind of chopped it up on our opinions basically on whether brewing is more science or more art. And my argument was, well, you can't separate, those two, that they're mutually, a part of what this whole thing is, and making beer and coming up with new ideas. But it's kind of what your intention is. Do you lean more into the science? Do you lean more into the art? And it sounds to me like what you're saying is that the artistic part is what really tickles you, right? Or am I wrong on that?
No, that's true. That's very true. And I suppose because of that, I've really tried to keep my process simple. Do what I know works. And I guess what I'm proud of is that just about everything that we've come out with is, we've been able to dial it in. We've been able to get what I was going after. So, that's a blessing, but.
Oh, that's an absolute sign of, I think, again, that intention being there and the dedication, because we know that, we're going to talk about the iterative process in the next segment a little bit more, I think, but I can't help but wonder, like, you got this job, you've been there for a couple of years, you are moving up in the ranks in terms of the, as a brewer. And at some point you made a beer that just hit. And I'm wondering what that first one was. I have my ideas based on how long I've been around. But I'm curious what you view as being kind of the one where you were like, hey, this is working out. The people really liked this one.
Well, so yeah, I think there's a couple. Like I said, first of all, we wanted to fix the IPA. We wanted to make that something that we could be proud of, that our friends could be proud of, because all our friends were IPA drinkers by then. And we tried some things out with dry hopping methods. Dry hopping it warm during fermentation was something that wasn't happening before, and that really kind of changed the game for that style.
Yeah.
But then, when we set out to start making some stuff that wasn't a year-round beer, just for the tap room, a couple of the first ones we did Red's Rye, which is a red IPA brewed with rye, and then we also the next one was Breakfast Stout, which is a chocolate coffee oatmeal stout, 8.5% alcohol. Um, that one really caught on. And kudos to our owners at the time. I had no intention of really taking these anywhere beyond our tap room. But they were like, they wanted to put these in a package. They wanted these to be the beers that we packaged up and sent out to the world. And I thought it was kind of crazy at the time, but it was the right thing to do.
Oh my goodness, was
Um,
it ever? I mean, I remember KBS being this like again this kind of whale of a beer that, especially on the West Coast where we don't get access to a lot of the stuff that breweries pretty much east of Colorado are making. At that if a friend was able to snag a 4-pack or a 6-pack of KBS, it was like, all right, let's plan a barbecue, a tasting event basically. Is that still a big thing for you guys? Or
yeah, I mean, it's in the early days, it was wild. The first time we did KBS, and we had just, it was the first beer I ever put in barrel in wood aged, and we were just experimenting. I had heard of, the Goose Island, the Bourbon County. I don't even think I'd ever had one, but I thought, I love bourbon. It would be a fun thing to try. So, Breakfast Out was the first thing that we put in there. Gave it a year, and when it came out, it was really interesting. It had lost a lot of the chocolate and the coffee character, and the mouthfeel was a little bit thin. So we changed up the base recipe a little bit, and we tried it again. And then the next year it was, wow, this is really good. I think we had enough to do a small run of it that year. Put the bottles in our cooler and in our tap room, and they just kind of sat there. I don't think that people didn't really understand. They looked at that price tag, they looked at all the words, and were like, I don't know what's going on here. That's, but it didn't take long. I think it was like maybe a year or two after that, that all of a sudden there was a line around the building of people waiting to get access to this. I'm like,
yeah.
what happened? How did this happen? But it was the timing of the beer rating sites,
Oh
Rate
my
Beer
God.
and Beer Advocate, and those
Yeah.
things. I had no idea what was going on those sites, but there was a lot of talk and there was a lot of hype and excitement, and it was really a blessing. I mean, it was free advertising that we never could have, done ourselves.
Hell yeah. I mean, I think I forget who it was I was talking to a few years ago, and the beer rate, it was another brewer out there, and the beer rating site thing came up, and their comment was, those sites, if anything, are hype builders, and it worked out in the favor of so many wonderful breweries that you can't really
Hmm.
complain about it.
Yep.
I mean, obviously you had Pliny the Elder over here on the West Coast where there was lines.
Hmm.
They still, the younger release is still a wild thing event out here. You
Yeah.
definitely had the KBS, the Goose Islands in the Midwest, and then there's stuff on the East Coast. I think they're still, you got some breweries out there who are still doing some stuff. It's just so neat that despite the ups and the downs of the industry, which I'd love to hear your thoughts on where we're at currently right now in the state of the industry, but there's still this segment of people who are just so committed, like that they'll wait in line for a beer. It's just pretty cool to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. That that's a we really those are the people, those are the customers that put us where we are, and
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time right now thinking about, well, how do we expand, how do we get new customers, younger customers, how do we connect with these people that aren't as passionate about beer as that original generation was. And but we still, it's important to take care of those OG customers. They're the ones that have the passion, probably have the income to to keep drinking craft beer, and and they like what we were doing and what got us here. And so,
Yeah.
as much as we try to innovate and come up with the hot new thing, there's uh, my most proud moments are when some of these old classics are still getting attention.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Are you, I have to ask, are you making seltzers and slushy sours and all that stuff as well? Or?
We went through a seltzer phase. It was during the pandemic. I remember working from home and coming into the brewery all masked up, and that was kind of the project in 2020. But it was a shorter run. I think we had ambitions of what could be, but you just never know in this industry when something is going to be a short fad or if it's here to stay, and how much do you want to invest into it? It's tough.
Yeah, I know. I have local friends here who are in the professional world of brewing, and same thing. It's like, how much money do we want to spend on building up the ability to make this stuff?
Yeah.
If it's just going to drop dead in a few years,
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, there are some good ass seltzers out there. Goodness gracious,
Yeah, right.
The
right.
creativity that's gone into that, whatever you want to call it, beverage for adults, is pretty wild.
Yep. We're not done. We just released our first RTD. So it's actually spirit based.
Oh, cool.
It's called Water Hazard. It's kind of based on a cocktail that was gaining popularity out like on the golf courses. It's like vodka, blue Gatorade, lemonade, and Sprite.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay,
that's great, man. Yeah. Well,
if that's what some people want,
Yeah.
we're more of a beverage company these days, and we have the capacity, we have the resources to try new things. So if that's the thing that saves the brewery, I might be a little disappointed that it's not a beer or something. But hey, we want to pay some bills too.
yeah, whatever keeps the lights on it. And honestly, I mean, I went through the phase. It's the same thing with music, where it's like you get into one style of music, and then next thing you know, you find yourself judging other styles. And I had this realization, like, why do I do that? That's like, it's got to come from some weird, like, insecure spot in my mind. It's the same with the beer stuff. I've really had, the older I get and the longer I've been doing this stuff, I just feel like, who cares if other people like other stuff? If especially if you're trying to sell it to make money, like, God, sell it to them then. They want to pay for it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, your pride only gets you so far.
That's right.
And we're still doing plenty of stuff that I think are artistically credible and I'm proud of, but I'll take any idea and give it my best and try to make that flavor hit and have it resonate with whoever wants to drink it.
Yes, I think that's such a wonderful mentality. Well, a beer that I'm sure you are very proud of is All Day IPA. This year marks the 15th anniversary, as I mentioned before, of All Day IPA, the details of which, again, we are going to dig into very deeply in the next segment. But for now, I'm just curious what this beer means to you and to founders. I mean, it really does seem to be a huge part of the portfolio at this point.
Yeah, so before All Day came out, we didn't have a flagship. We didn't have anything that was more than 20% of our volume in the portfolio. It was pretty evenly split out between Centennial IPA and Dirty Bastard and Breakfast Stout, but we were growing. We had outgrown our original facility, built a new place, but on the shoulders of a wide ranging portfolio that was growing, and it was exciting. But when we stumbled upon All Day and it instantly went to 50-60% of our output, that was a wild ride. That was really hold on to your butts and try to make as much beer as we can as fast as we can. But yeah, it was not. It was a bit of a surprise.
It's wild to me that a sub 5% ABV hoppy pale ale was the rocket ship for founders, and
Right.
and in many ways, I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about the distribution process and stuff in a little bit, but I remember that being the first. In fact, I think to this day it might be the only founders beer that I'm able to find on the shelves out here where I live in California. And I was like, what the hell? Founders is in California, all because of a session IPA. That really must have been just a wild ride for you and the team over there.
Well, sure. We had cut our teeth on these higher alcohol, full flavored over the top beers. And for that one to come around, and experience the success that it did was, yeah, like I said, it was unexpected, but it was needed. The reason
Hell
that
yeah.
the reason we made it was because, well, we didn't have anything like that. And here I am trying to, do afternoon meetings and have a couple beers, and I'm drinking these, IPAs that are almost 7.5% alcohol. And man, by the time I get home, I'm kind of buzzed and I'm not feeling productive. And I'm like, I can't keep this up. And it wasn't just me. It was everybody at the company was, kind of feeling that same vibe. So that's really what led us to, man, can you capture all the character, all the flavors and aromas that we love from an IPA, but man, turn that alcohol down and make it something that you can enjoy in a session and still keep your motivation and your productivity high.
Depending on how much you consume. I mean, well, we do have to take a quick break, but when we return, we're going to be focusing even more heavily on Jeremy's experiences with All Day IPA.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada? Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
There's no denying that stainless steel is the best material for brewing equipment, and Delta Brewing Systems offers some of the lowest prices on high-quality stainless gear, like the Firm Tank, which in addition to holding 8 gallons or 30 liters of work, comes with a domed lid to even further reduce the chances of a messy blow-off. Plus, it can hold up to 4 psi of pressure for closed transfers. Delta Brewing Systems also has their own line of brew kettles, as well as one of the lowest-priced all-in-one electric brewing systems out there, and their prices are shockingly low. If you're in the market for legit stainless gear that won't break the bank, do yourself a favor and head over to deltabrewingsystems.com today. I mentioned at the top of the show that I first had All Day IPA back in October of 2015. I'm pretty sure that's when it was, because that's right around the time I first started seeing it on the shelves here in California as well. But given this is the 15th year anniversary of All Day IPA, I was obviously a bit late to the game. I know that it came out at least where you're at. You guys released it originally before 2015, right?
Yeah, 2011 is when we first put it out there. It was going to be our summer seasonal. And then, man, getting into fall, we just could not stop making it. It was doing that well.
So that would suggest to me, though, that it blew up locally. And so, when I think about craft beers or craft breweries and a beer that does really well for them, that's just a huge success. The first thought I have is, wow, that really means that there's this, relatively small group of, regionally speaking, of people who are loving this beer so much that the brewers are going, I wonder if it'll hit the same way outside of this region, right? I mean, is that part of the process that you guys go through, or?
It depends. Sometimes that's how it goes. Sometimes it's you offer it to everybody in your customer base, and it resonates. It's what people needed, and I think with All Day, we had a decent distribution footprint. I don't think we weren't in all the states at the time, but there was enough, and I don't know. I feel like that was just the right beer at the right time. I didn't realize it, but there was a lot of people probably feeling like we felt, where, God, I love IPAs, but can I get that flavor and with something more sessionable?
Yeah, that's also not a near beer. I mean, I've been kind of vocal about, I love that there's an option, non-alcoholic beers for people who don't want alcohol, but I have zero interest in those because I like alcohol. That's part of the reason I drink beer. But to be able to have a nice, delicious IPA that feels and tastes like an IPA, but you can drink a 6-pack and still be able to walk straight it's pretty cool. And it feels to me like it was a really clever, unique idea, at least for the time. I mean, you released it locally in 2011, which means I would think that you started the iterative process, that you brewed that first idea batch far before 2011, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was 2009 that I actually started working on this thing, but man, at the time it was beautiful. There was no gun to my head. There was no pressure. There was no try to, we got to catch this fad before, it gets too big. And we were just like innovating for ourselves and taking our time. And that was a recipe that I really wanted it to be, perfect. And it was a weird style to brew. It was, I hadn't really had an experience trying to watch that alcohol level. And especially with something like an IPA, there's a lot going on, and there's a delicate balance of flavors, especially as you take away things like, residual sugars and watching that bitterness, but still getting, the hop character that you want. So it took a lot of iterations. I remember just trying, and they were all fine, but it wasn't until that we finally hit this recipe that I was like, that's it. We all knew that was the one.
Oh, that's so awesome. When I think about, again, like, not new styles, but that's sort of what All Day was at the time. But like a new spin on a style or something new for a brewery. Economically speaking, I think in terms of, back in the mid 2010s, you'd often hear pro brewers saying, I don't brew what the drinkers want, I brew what I want. You can't really survive on that these days, I don't think. But it does seem to me like maybe this was a blend of, I really want to make this because it would work out well for us, but I think other people might like it as well. Or did you have some sort of metric saying that, the market is demanding a lower ABV IPA?
Absolutely not. And funny you say that, because I think that our slogan at the time was, we brew the beer we want to drink. So yeah. we were living, yes. And we have changed that now. I think it's brewed for everyone now.
There you go. Even better. Yeah.
That's how it goes. But no, we were not brewing that. Like I said, it was for me, it was for my bosses, it was for everybody around there that just needed a lower alcohol thing. And like I said, I guess there was enough other people in the world that were feeling that way. So totally right place, right time. And coming out with it in the 15-pack format.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was a game changer too. So it was, basically 15 beers for the price of 12. So it became a great value proposition as well. We didn't make a lot of profit per se on the drops of liquid, but we were playing the volume game, and we thought that we could grow this brewery up, and we had moved into a location where there was room to grow, there was room to keep expanding on the building, and that's exactly what happened.
That's so awesome. And I do think a lot of people, those of us especially who have been around long enough, before All Day was a thing, look at All Day IPA as sort of the spark that lit the session IPA craze, which maybe it wasn't a craze now when we think about like hazy IPA and stuff like that.
Right.
But holy shit. I mean, I remember there was a period of probably like 3 or 4 years, I'd say between like 2014 and 2017 or so, where every home brewer that I, rubbed elbows with was doing their best to make, a version of, maybe not All Day IPA, but a version of their own session IPA.
Sure.
And it is not the easiest thing in the world to brew.
It's not. No, that's why I said it took me years. I think I didn't really count, but the legend says like 20 different recipes before we nailed it. So
that is such, in my opinion, brewers, look, one, you don't have to have a formal education to become a professional brewer. Even in this day and age, I just don't think you need that. Get the experience under your belt, dedicate yourself to the cause. And I think that you have a future there. But look, if you want to make a kick-ass beer, you've got to brew over and over and over again. What are the odds that the very first batch you brew is going to be the hit? I mean, I have to imagine it's quite low.
it maybe happened a couple times in my life, but no, it's and the thing about brewing is, right, you do it and then you don't really know for a few weeks before if you did it right. So that kind of elongates the process, you know. Well, at best you can brew it once every month to if you're really trying to, you know, go fast about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes it hard these days, you know, in how fast things need to be innovated and how quickly fads come and go. If you really want to get in on it, you gotta you can't spend 2 years developing it like I did with All Day. But I was blessed to have that opportunity there, and that was an important beer for me. I had a lot of you know, personal connection to that. I just wanted it to be right, and yeah, thankful that I had the time to really dial it in.
Yeah, that's such a cool story. And you know, speaking more specifically about the style of session IPA, you know, even as a brewer myself, and from what I hear from others, you know, who, like I said, that group of friends that I was constantly brewing session IPA with and trying to make one that wasn't too bitter or too thin. I feel like those are the two main banes of the session IPA brewer's existence. We'll talk recipe here in a minute, but I'm curious how you approached those two things in your thinking and then also in your application of whatever it was that you came up with.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, first being the body, you know, there's different ways to make IPA, of course, and there's different styles of it. You know, out there on the West Coast, you know, the first West Coast I had, we're pretty dry, right? That's kind of the style, dry, bitter. You know, I loved it when I first came across it. It was not like the Midwest IPAs, which are, you know, I guess a little more balanced as far as having some malt body. But, you know, with this session style, I just couldn't have it be too either too thin or too you know, sweet, too much residual sugar, especially just malt. You know, that would have, you know, session is not just the alcohol, but you gotta make it something that drinks easy and it's just, you know, goes down and you're ready for another one. If you get too much residual sugar left behind, it ruins that for that aspect. And then the bitterness, of course, too. Yeah, it's you know, IPAs obviously are hop forward. There's a degree of bitterness, but yeah, you can't overdo that either, especially when you don't have much residual sugar to balance that out.
Yeah, the bitterness thing, I remember the first session IPA I attempted. It was fine. Like you said, you're like, I mean, it's drinkable, but it's not where I want it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I was messing around with all kinds of techniques. Obviously, the ingredients, you know, should I throw some rye in there just to get those beta glucans to bump up that viscosity to make it feel bigger than it is?
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things that we found, and we've done several experiments on mash temperature, right? Where and obviously homebrew scale, we're looking at 5-gallon batches for the most part, but you know, we mash a beer at 148 Fahrenheit and compare it to the same exact grist and everything mashed at 162. And people cannot tell these beers apart by and large, despite there being like a 1.5% ABV difference, which is wild to me. But that also suggests, you know, a lot of us had the thought, hey, when I'm making these session IPAs, maybe I'll get that oomph back, that body and that mouthfeel back by mashing warm. And if people can't tell them apart in a blind triangle test, that suggests that the mouthfeel bit of it is also not really being amplified in the way that we would hope, at least, by these mash temperatures. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a subtle thing. It's one of those things that when it comes down to really digging in and critiquing a beer, you know, more so than just, oh, I'm going to try this beer. Yeah, that's pretty good. And this one's pretty good too.
Right.
I will say that the path that I took was, and I hadn't had a lot of experience with it, especially in the IPA style at the time, but it was using adjuncts. You know, All Day has a pretty decent amount of oats and wheat and corn in there. So
wow.
I kind of settled on you know, the three main adjunct groups. Yeah, it was just the intention of trying to keep some mouthfeel in there without having it be unfermented sugar character, so that worked out pretty well. It really, I think it softened it. It provided a perceived mouthfeel that seemed to handle the bitterness load a little bit better.
That's awesome. I call beers like that multigrain beers. I also make sourdough. So
Yeah.
the old multigrain beers.
One of the early things that we referred to it was a multi-grain IPA, before we settled on what are we going to call this thing?
Yeah. Well, speaking of what are you going to call it, I have a feeling I know where the name came from, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the thought process behind All Day IPA?
Well, actually the original name was Endurance IPA. Actually submitted a test batch to the GABF, I think in 2010, and it won a medal as Endurance IPA Junior, I think is what we submitted it as. Turns out there was already an endurance brewing company that they wanted a fairly substantial amount of money to use the endurance name. So we set down a different path. People had started calling it an all-day IPA. That was sort of like the tagline after. This sounded a little better than multi-grain IPA.
Just a little.
But some other ideas were thrown around, based on that label, with the woody, two-track IPA was one of the top names that came down with the voting. But I just loved the way All Day IPA rolled off the tongue. It just seemed like a iconic, catchy thing that you would order at the bar, thing that would have some longevity. So I fought pretty hard for that name, and I'm glad that's where we settled.
Yeah, it is such a descriptive name. And I'm a believer that the name contributes to the interest people have in products of all sorts, especially beer. I mean, if you called something multigrain IPA, I have a feeling that it wouldn't have sold we wouldn't be sitting here today potentially. It might have been a one and doneer, but All Day IPA, it has that, like you said, it rolls off the tongue and it's so descriptive. It tells you exactly what you're going to be doing that day is drinking that IPA. That can design is one of the better ones out there. I absolutely love it. I want to ask about where the design came from, if it's changed at all. But I'm also, one of the things that I remember when All Day, the 15 packs of All Day came out, is it was, not the first, but it was one of the first brands that I remember seeing in standard 12-ounce cans. And that really, to me, was like, oh, that's so convenient. I can grab a 15 pack, throw it in the ice chest, go camping, that had to have been a very intentional decision, I imagine.
Yeah, we were pretty new to the can game at that point. In fact, we had a couple years prior to that, it was time to upgrade our packaging facilities. We had a smaller bottle line, and there wasn't a whole lot of cans going on, and we had to make the call whether to get a bigger bottle line or get a bigger can line. We actually went with a big bottle line, and ended up getting a smaller can line, to do some things. But in retrospect, I wish we would have just jumped right into cans because, it's a superior vessel. They just, they're easier to carry. You can take them more places. Yeah, they got a lot of a bad rap, I think, just from people, thinking that it's going to taste like aluminum or whatever. There was a whole lot it just carried a lot of baggage. Cans are bad, bottles are good, and I get it. And we still obviously put beer in bottles too. Most of our barrel aged things, and we offer bottles of other brands too. But yeah, cans are where it's at, especially with a beer like this, right? This is what you want to do. You want to take it to the beach. You want to take it on a kayak or whatever you're doing. So it's that had to be cans.
Yeah, and I'm so glad it is. It really, to me, cans are convenient. I mean, bottles are a pain in the ass, and I mean, there is a widely held belief to this day that bottles are better. I mean, we've all heard that, and
sure.
Breaking away from these ideas that some people, it's such an interesting phenomenon for me to witness. Like, dude, cans are better. Like, I promise you, they're better.
No, there's people you can't convince though.
No, yeah, that's exactly right. For so many things outside of beer, even, but. Tell us a little bit about the woody and the can design. I absolutely love it. It does look like it's changed a little bit recently as well.
Yeah, so we were working with a marketing firm at the time that that sent over, I don't know, a lot of different comps, a lot of different ideas. But when we saw that one, that was it was pretty obvious too. That really grabbed our attention. We thought it kind of summed up the beer. It summed up, the adventure, the outdoor lifestyle, whatever you want to do. And yeah, it kind of stuck. And we've done some brand refreshes over the year, as you have to do with a brand that's been around so long, just to make sure the consumer sees it again, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, the ideas has stayed the same. We did some all day variants over the years, some different line extensions, and but all kind of based around that same woody. Maybe you change the instead of a kayak on top, maybe it's I can't remember. There were some different ones, but all kind of based around that iconic woody. Driving wherever it's going to go.
Yeah. I love it. I love the colors. I love everything about it. Before we get into the recipe stuff, which that's, I know a lot of people here listening are waiting for that. Tell us a little bit about some of the awards or the recognition that All Day IPA has earned over the last 15 years.
Well, it's I mentioned that trial batch hitting the medal at GABF.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I've entered that thing all the time, and it hasn't yet won as an all day yet. So, and in fact, some of the feedback I have gotten lately from judges is like, well, it's have you thought about entering it in the golden ale category? Is one that I read just last year. So I feel like the industry has changed a lot, and the way people brew and the way we just have to keep pushing and pushing, flavor, and that's probably what gets judges' attention at this point. And so all day is not the most. It's a session beer, right? It's supposed to be balanced. It's supposed to be really drinkable. Now, are there other session IPAs that are going to come across and get the judges' attention more than that? Yeah, I'm sure. But I'm happy where it's at. I really think that it just drinks so good, and every time I come back to it, I'm impressed. I'm happy where it's at.
Yeah, I'm also entirely convinced that in any competition, in order to win, you have to kind of make a caricature of what your original idea was.
Right.
That stands right. So that, because anybody who's ever judged a competition, I'm a judge. I don't even really like judging anymore because of that experience of being like, God, I've had 4 IPAs. How do I even know which one is better? They're all good. It's just so difficult, but
it's I don't put a lot of stock into it, but it would be nice. It would be nice for the brand to hit a major award to lean on, but it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah. No one ever complained about getting a medal.
Right.
You know what I mean? I totally get that. Well, I know some brewers do like to keep the finer details of their prized recipes under wraps. So feel free to share whatever it is you're comfortable with as we go through this. I don't know if you're into, percentages and stuff like that, or if you just want to be more general, whatever you're comfortable with, Jeremy.
Well, I certainly enjoy helping out the home brewers, and we haven't ever put anything, official on our websites, but I get a lot of emails here and there, and I'm always willing to help out with some pointers as I would appreciate it when I was home brewing. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Well, cool. How about this? Let's we're going to start in the way that I temporally think about brewing a batch of beer. And for me, the beginning steps is always water chemistry. Do you do anything special with your water? Are you starting with a specific mineral profile or anything like that?
Our water here in West Michigan is just really awesome for brewing. It comes from Lake Michigan, so it's a large source. It's very constant. It's got great mineral count. I don't have to do a whole lot to it. We make a small pH adjustment, and it gets some calcium chloride and some calcium sulfate. But yeah, it's we're really lucky that I haven't had to dig too far into water chemistry to get the beer finishing like how I want it to.
So pretty classic, increasing that chloride and sulfate content through the use of calcium chloride and gypsum, it sounds like. Do you favor one over the other? Is it like a ratio that you aim for in terms of sulfate to chloride, or?
Usually 2 to 1 on the chloride to the sulfate.
Okay, so you're going higher chloride or higher sulfate?
Higher chloride. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I think that's one of those things to me that can have a very palpable impact on that perception of mouthfeel at the very least. I get
definitely
in higher chloride beers, I do tend to get this kind of, I refer to it as a warming, even though it's not warm. It kind of makes you feel like, oh, that's so full and rich and warm, even though you it sounds like you agree.
I do. Yep. I use chloride in everything. I'll add the gypsum when I'm trying to, maybe get a little more of a pop out of the hop bite.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I settled on this one, blended the two, but yeah, heavier on the chloride.
That's so cool to hear. See, you learn something new every day. And that's definitely something the next time I make a session IPA, I'm going to remember that, because to this day, I struggle with session IPA in my own brewery, but I'm always going like 4-to-1 sulfate to chloride. Maybe I need to flip that around a little bit.
Yeah, try that.
Yeah, I'm going to. The other thing, you already mentioned that, it's a multi-grain beer, but what is your grain bill? Are you leaning into like the Pilsner malt? Are you using pale malt, Marisot, or something like that? What are you doing there?
The base malt is just our house 2-row. We get it in bulk. We've selected it for flavor and performance reasons, but that makes up about 60% of the grist. Other than that, it's those adjuncts that I talked about, and then just a little bit of a light crystal malt to give it some color. I didn't want this to be, a pea yellow beer. I wanted it to have a little orangey hue to it. And that also helped to just give a little bit of sweetness in there too. So yeah, we're at about, let's see, and look at the recipe. Between it's got some Carahel in there. So between that and the crystal malt, that's about 15% of the grist.
Okay, and you said light crystal. You looking like 15, 20? What do you?
Yeah, this is actually 20 to 30. I think it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love the flavors that people on the West Coast hate crystal malt these days. There's a place for it, man. Right?
It's I love it. I mean, when it's my favorite grain to just munch on. It's like it's almost like candy. It's got this nice crispy outer. And then some sweetness to it. Yeah, I love the light crystal malt.
Yeah. I still use. I'm a weirdo who likes C60. I know that's a, you either love it or you hate it grain for whatever reason. But just a small little touch, a little 3 to 5% dose in a nice amber ale or something. To me, it just really rounds things out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I use that in our full strength Centennial IPA. Gets some of that crystal medium.
Yeah, Centennial IPA is so delicious too. I mean, especially for a classic, in my opinion, what has become a kind of a classic IPA to lean on. Good stuff. So all day, the hop schedule, I feel like, we live in a world now with so many varieties available to us that are going to make beer taste like fruit punch, right? All day to me is like the perfect balance of that fruity, but maybe a little piney, but also, you get a little bit of that, not tropical fruit, but kind of that grapefruity kind of citrusy thing going on. Yeah. What are you doing with your hops in this beer?
Yeah. So, when this came out, I had, this was before a lot of the modern hops had been released. There was no Citra, there was no Mosaic. The cool new hops at the time was Amarillo and Simcoe.
Simcoe, yes.
Yeah, so I love Simcoe so much. If I had to pick one hop, that might be my just favorite. I love the way you get some of that. I think it's the backbone of what comes through in all day. A little bit of that tropical, some nice pine, almost like pine and pineapple is kind of what I get out of it. A little soft berry too, and then the Amarillos were. It was the most grapefruity thing that I had ever had when it first came out. So those two really drive. I mean, that's what makes up the dry hop and the late hop additions.
So good. So those are such. awesome, in my opinion, classic American hops for this style of beer. Just so good. I'm with you, Simcoe. Especially if you, in my experience, if you bitter with a little bit of Simcoe, there's this like nice dankiness that you get, this undernote. I just love it. In terms of yeast, I feel like a lot of the more notable American craft breweries, everybody kind of copied Sierra Nevada with Chico in terms of like home brewing, but then you hear from these other breweries who are like, no, man, we get away with using English ale yeasts, and it works. What are you guys more in that Chico line of yeast strains, or do you go more English?
Yeah, so back in the day when we took over, they were the previous brewer was using a different American ale yeast. I think it was American Ale 2.
Oh yeah.
We didn't love it. Our experience from home brewing was that Chico yeast was all-purpose, heavy-duty rock star of a yeast. So we switched to that. At the time, I didn't want to manage a bunch of yeast strains in this production brewery. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of chance for cross contamination, and so we settled on the Chico style, and we've been propagating ourselves for the last decade. So it's kind of taken on a bit of our own house character, just through the process of selecting cells that we like and growing from there. So that is our. We have other yeast strains. We have a yeast manager. We have a lot better methods of being able to manage several strains. So we do also have a English strain in here too that they use for my hazies, because it turns out that Chico, that's one of the things I can't do is make a good hazy beer.
Yeah, we've tried.
Yeah, right.
It's not that good.
They always just get bright on me, and then it's like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose. So we do have a London strain in here, but the original all day at least is Chico yeast.
So I think for homebrewers out there who are trying to come up with a version of a session IPA that's like all day IPA, lean on that USO 5 or the AO7 flagship from Imperial. That would be WLP 001 from White Labs. That's a yeast strain that, like you said, is just so versatile. And it's funny, over the years, I mean, in my 500 plus batches that I've brewed, I was like you. It was like Chico, and then you're like, well, let me try some other stuff. And then you go 3 or 4 years, and you're like, I'm gonna go back to Chico, and you're like, shit, I remember how good this stuff is, man. It's that good.
Yeah.
And it sounds like with all day, it just hits.
Yeah, it's just it's a workhorse, and it's fairly neutral. It just does its job, gets out of the way. When in the early days designing beers, I really wanted to let the malt and the hops do the talking, and not have that yeast impression be a dominant part of the beer. So I've come a long ways. I certainly appreciate other strains now, especially for certain styles, but it's for making a good clean IPA, you can't get much better.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay. Process wise, and we do not have to spend too long on this. I'm just curious. There's a few things, as you are very well aware, when it comes to making a style like session IPA that I think a lot of homebrewers struggle with making a decision on. The first one is mash temperature. I mean, are you guys doing a single infusion? You doing step, decoction? I doubt it's decoction. And if you're doing a single, what are the temperatures you're aiming for?
Yeah, we do single infusion. We, like I said, I like to keep things simple. And we're targeting, in the low 150s. I think 152 is probably the target on that. You get a little bit of unfermentables left behind, but it's not going to come across too cloying. And like you said earlier, there's a pretty wide range there as far as like, a degree here, a degree there is going to be pretty minor as far, but it is doing single step means you got to get it right. You can't be too far off, and you don't have much control. You don't have any way to fix it. And if these things start getting much drier or not fermenting as far as you want, then we don't have a lot of means for remedying that. So, and then as we store our grain in silos that are outside the building. So throughout the year, depending on the temperature outside, we get a lot of temperature swing here in Michigan. We have to make adjustments on that water temperature to make sure that we're in the range for for what we want that mash temperature to be.
As a function of your grain temperature, right? So you're saying,
exactly. Yeah.
That's such a funny thing that homebrewers just do not have to think about. It's in my garage, 5-10 degree difference, not a big deal. But in terms of the boil, I imagine you guys are doing a pretty standard, 60-minute boil. Are you guys using any nutrients? You guys doing like a first wort hop? How are you hopping throughout the boil?
Yeah, so interesting. All day actually, I threw some hops into the mash. It was the first time I ever tried mash hopping, and then also some first wort, and that's really all it gets for the early part. For the bittering charges. I just was going. I wanted to cram as much hops as I could into this thing without getting that excessive bitterness. So I thought that there's some science about mash hopping and how it affects down the line even with biotransformations to me, I tried it and I tasted the wort that was coming from the mash tun to the kettle, and it was delicious. It was definitely had some really pleasant hop, almost like Fruit Loopy kind of character that, and maybe that, maybe it's volatile enough that it doesn't have a huge impact on the finished product, but I don't know. I thought it was fun, and like I said, it was just trying to lend more nuance to this beer.
Yeah, I think it was the late great Mike Tasty McDole who once said that if anything, mash hopping makes for a better smelling brew day, which I think is pretty cool.
That's the only reason we do it, then so be it.
Then so be it. I tend to be one that thinks that it may have, as well, like you said, some impact in terms of biotransformation later on down the line. So I think it's cool. But again, I mean, just the smell and Sam, who doesn't drink sweet wort when it's coming out of the mash tun? It makes it a little bit better. Yeah. But and then so you're doing basically mash hopping, first wort hopping, and then just a shit ton of whirlpool hopping, or
there's actually, looks like we got a little bit of Simcoe Amarillo starting at like the 30-minute mark, 30-15 whirlpool, and then heavy on the dry hop.
Cool. And then fermentation, I imagine your guys are sticking between that 66 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or?
Well, we're actually letting this thing go at 70.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so a little bit of the higher end, but I don't know. I kind of like that Chico can handle it. That yeast is so tough. It's
so robust. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So 70 degrees on the fermentation temperature, and you guys are dry hopping it. What's your approach to dry hopping this beer?
Yeah. A couple days. This beer doesn't take too long to ferment. It's only 11 Plato wort. So usually by day 2, day 3, it's time to get those dry hops in there while there's still some activity. We dry hop right in the top of the tank and let gravity do the work. As the beer is fermenting and the hops are falling through it, I think you get, the best utilization out of it. And then, give it a few more days, let it do its thing, let it pass its VDK testing, and then it's ready for crash.
Hell yeah. So this is you're doing a single dry hop, which makes perfect sense to me, but it sounds like you're going during active fermentation. You're not doing the old classic wait until, there's like, 4 Plato left to ferment out or whatever.
To the lower end of the side, but we definitely still want to get some activity still going on in there. You can't get it in too soon, or you're gonna make a geyser exploding out of the tank. We've learned that lesson the hard way. So now we wait. You can kind of prime that tank. You throw a little bit in there and quick seal it back up. Let it chill out for a little bit, and then it's ready to take the rest. But yeah, we've had some beer volcanoes before.
Geysers.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so it sounds like, this is a pretty quick turnaround in terms of fermentation. What are you looking at, like a week or so?
Yeah, it gets, I bet it's crashed in 7-8 days. Give it some cold time, and then we centrifuge it bright, and it's ready to go.
Look at that, people. A craft brewery filter. They all filter nowadays. Come on. Do you remember back in the old days, it was like the sign of a craft. People would be so proud of the fact that they're drinking unfiltered beer. I'm like, that's why you can't sleep at night.
I'll be honest, when in those early days before I was in the industry, and it's kind of how I would shop. I would look at a beer and I would be like, if it didn't have some like sediment in the bottom, I probably didn't want it, because I'm like, it's filtered beer. It's not going to be as flavorful. Now I see that, I'm like, oh God, no.
Gross. Yeah. Don't shake it up. Jeez. I know. It's so funny, the evolution of the modern beer drinker's way of thinking, but that's cool though. So I would imagine that on the homebrew scale, if somebody wanted to throw in some gelatin or something, probably achieve a similar, or maybe some kettle finings or whatever, or run it through even a plate filter or something, they'd get a similar result.
Yeah, yeah, yep. We do, we do hot side findings just to get as much out of there as we can, those proteins. But then, yeah, we've got that centrifuge dialed in. I mean, it may not be as bright as a plate filter, but it's plenty bright enough. And I like the way the centrifuge is, little more gentle. It's just we ran a filter when I first started. They had a diatomaceous earth filter, and that was disgusting. That seemed like a terrible thing to do to beer. So we stopped doing that and started using cold side findings, which are great, and we used those for a long time. Eventually we got to the size and scale where it made sense to go centrifuge rather than cold side findings, but they work great.
Yeah, and plus, as gentle as centrifuges are, they certainly don't sound like it when they're running.
Oh
man.
my God, they're so loud. I just walked past that thing
Shotguns.
earlier today and commented to myself, like, I'm gonna have to wear earplugs when I'm down on the floor all the time. It's so loud.
Oh man, yeah. I was up at Bale Breaker in Yakima, a few years ago for hop harvest, and they had their centrifuge going. I was like, dude, I did not know
What
they
is
sounded like that. Yeah, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
But awesome. So I love it. Filtering a hoppy beer and it still tastes just as hoppy as before it went into the filtration system. Again, another tip from the pros, people, and I think that's really cool to hear. Is there anything else on making all day IPA before we wrap things up, or?
I guess I just want to, as far as the dry hop goes, we are only it's at about a pound per barrel, which is, I suppose, pretty low, according to industry standards these days, at least. At the time it was acceptable and it was fine, but I'm just blown away at how much hops people are dry hopping with in the modern world, and I think it was worse a few years ago. I think a lot of those brewers have come around to realizing, just how wasteful it is, and
yes.
and even I think from a sensory perspective that over dry hop beers to me are not enjoyable. They're not, maybe that first snip, you're like, wow, that's incredible. But man, by the end of drinking a, 5, 6, 7 pound per barrel dry hop beer, I'm spent, I'm blew out. And I really, the sweet spot seems to be, for all day, it's a pound. A lot of other IPAs, I'm at 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds, but 2.5 is about as high as I ever go on a dry hop. I just feel the returns are so diminished after that, and some of the negative characteristics even start to shine through. So, just pound per barrel on that all day.
Yeah, it's funny, you talking about the overly dry hopping. To me, it's an economical issue. Like there's actual science out there, right? The Shellhammers put out research showing that at a certain point, it is diminishing returns. You're just throwing money into a beer tank, that you're not going to get back. And I think it's silly but whatever, if you think it's doing it, then by all means. But it kind of reminds me of this whole thing with, I forget what it was called, Phantasm, I believe, but it's like that wine or the wine grape.
Yeah.
And what was the term we were talking about? This is a sign of the times. No one's even talking about it anymore. But they were throwing this stuff in beers and it would ferment out and it would be so hyper fruity in the weirdest of ways. And it was never that enjoyable to me,
Yeah, brewers always we just got to keep trying new stuff and pushing. I feel like this is just grumpy old brewer talking, but man, I feel like we hit a ceiling and just kept pushing to the point where I don't know. It's hard for me to enjoy some of these more modern IPAs that are just so over the top. I get it. We had to keep push how far we could go, but I think we hopefully saw a ceiling there, and can get back to realizing that you can make a good, well-balanced, easy, good drinking IPA with, just classic ingredients.
Yeah, God, that's right. Well, look, Jeremy, every year for the last, since I've lived in California, 24 years now, my family goes up to the river. It's off the grid, no phones, nothing like that. Back in the old days style, we trailer camp, we whitewater raft, and every year since I've had access to All Day IPA, I get 3 cases of that, and that is my craft beer of choice. I leave next Wednesday, and I will be going to the store this weekend to pick up some All Day IPA. I absolutely love it. To me, it's one of those beers. It's a throwback to the good old days of craft brewing when things were huge, but also simpler ways of drinking IPA. Like you were saying, it's so not over the top. And that's so much what I love about it. Easily one of my top 3 favorite session IPAs. Are you doing anything special to celebrate the 15th anniversary that you'd like our listeners to know about?
Well, we did a special commemorative package refresh. So for this year, I'm not sure it'll be in your market yet, but you might get your hands on it by now. But a special can and case box redesign, just to kind of celebrate, call out the fact that it's been 15 years, and that's kind of a big accomplishment in this day and age, to have something that's still relevant. It's hard to keep things relevant. You know how short consumers' attention spans are, and that always needing to try something new. I get it. It's we've enabled, the brewers have enabled that by just keep putting out new stuff, and but it's hard to build a brand and or even maintain a brand that's been around as long as it has. But I think that All Day it's important. I think it's kind of timeless. A lot of beers will come and go, but I think that one's can always have a place in your fridge or on your outdoors adventures or whatever you're doing. It's it's still relevant. It's still as people are looking to just enjoy beer, that in a session, it's by the 15 pack or whatever. So I think it's just that recognition of hey, we did a cool thing, and letting our consumers know not to forget about it.
I'm not going to forget about it anytime soon.
It makes me happy to hear that.
Yeah, I love All Day IPA, and congratulations again on 15 years of keeping a brand around in this climate that we're in right now. I think it's pretty impressive that you did that. How can people get in touch or stay up to date on what you're doing over at Founders?
Well, foundersbrewing.com is the domain, and there's all kinds of links about what we're doing on a grand scale or even local. And we always love to have people here at our tap room where you can try all of our innovations and things that we're working on. We brew a lot of special stuff just for here. So, and we get a lot of people traveling. We got a lot of people, and I see them, they'll ask to meet me, and I'll be like, "What are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "Oh, we came to the brewery." I'm like, "Okay." We'll base the trip around hitting up some breweries. So I love that people are still doing that, and I'm always happy to go out and have a beer and some conversations. So it's the best part of this job. It's the people, it's the camaraderie, it's the enjoying of the finer things in life together.
Well, I've not yet had the opportunity to even visit Michigan, the state in general, but I really do hope to get out there soon. And when I do, a trip to Founders Brewery will be high on the to-do list, and I'm going to be bugging you whenever I'm there, Jeremy. So just keep that in mind.
Definitely. I'd love to share some beers in person with you.
Oh, it'd be so much fun. And until then, I'm just going to have to settle for whatever it is that gets distributed out here in California, which thankfully right now does include All Day IPA. So if you're listening to this and you like deliciously hoppy IPA that you can drink, well, all day long, go out and get you some All Day IPA. You won't regret it. That is all the time that we've got for this episode. Jeremy, thank you again so much for joining me.
Thanks, Marshall. It's been great.
All right. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Brülosophy Show, at youtube.com/@The Show. And make sure to head to brülosophy.com to stay current on all of the fun beer and brewing stuff we are up to. The Brülosophy podcast is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors, as well as all of our rad listeners. We seriously could not do this without you. Cheers to everyone who has subscribed and left a review of our show. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so. Head over to brülosophy.com/support to view a list of ways you can easily help us to continue producing this podcast. If you want a reward for your support, visit patreon.com/brülosophy. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Brülosophy podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey, cause it suits my throat. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through the middleman no more. Life is good, the likelihood of me.
When I found out I was going to be a parent, I immediately felt a lot of anxiety and worry. So I went on to BetterHelp to try to look for a therapist to help me with that.
My relationship with my family and with my boyfriend and with myself were suffering. I really needed help.
I was ruminating a lot. Really getting those thoughts out to a therapist and getting feedback was just life-changing.
Discover what BetterHelp Online Therapy can do for you. Visit BetterHelp.com today.